All right, so let's kick it off with some introductions. Let's start with Sean.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Keith. I'm the VP of Business Development and Strategy for Games and Digital at NBC Universal. And I interact a lot with online digital communities, vis-a-vis gaming and different Web3 activations. So, pleasure to meet you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Christina Wooten, Chief Partnerships Officer at Roblox. And on our platform, over 66 million people come every single day. And there are developers who are creating experiences and sharing them with the world. There are brands who are coming and they're connecting with people all over the world and building communities. So excited to chat with you about that today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Charles Hambro. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Geek, spelled G-E-I-Q. A lot of people call us G-E-I-Q, which is rather frustrating. But we help brands make data-led decisions inside this new communication vertical.
And hey, everyone, Mark Daniels here. I am the Director of Growth at Virbela. And we're an enterprise metaverse platform that builds virtual worlds for Fortune 500 companies for learning and engagement.
Excellent. So we have a lot of different perspectives on the panel. Really excited for our conversation. All right, so let's start off with, how do you think about brands building communities in a virtual landscape?
Yeah, so, I mean, NBC Universal, obviously, we have a lot of franchises and well-known IPs. For us, to be honest, it's about setting clear expectations first, right? A lot of brands and different teams, they look at online virtual communities and they might have certain expectations. Expectations they've read about in the news or heard about from their kids. But really, the first process, at least our team has learned, is to understand the communities or the platforms that you want to engage with, spend time in them, hire experts, talk to experts, engage with the platforms themselves like Roblox, and understand what it is that you can achieve, who are the users you'll be communicating, and how other teams have explored creating communities there. So it's going back to the basics, doing your homework, and just understanding the platform that you're going to be engaging with.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. I think that's right. It's learning the platforms because there are so many different platforms now. And to assume that you know what's happening on that platform and how the audience you're trying to reach is behaving is a myth, right? So really take the time to understand not just the platform, how people are using it, how people are creating on it, spend time with them, watch them. Just like many, many years ago when there was the web and people were creating brands were creating websites, it was very much about getting content in front of people. And then with social media, it was starting to have a conversation, but it's really a lot of a one-way. And now in these immersive 3D environments, it's very much a two-way conversation. So you're building an experience where you can go in real time and you could actually see your audience interact with one another, how they engage with your brand, get feedback from them. So I would just say, build an experience that's going to benefit them and give them something that they can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, this is slightly marketing 101, but what's your objective? What are you trying to do? That's the sort of first thing a brand should be thinking about before going into these environments. And exactly what Christine was saying in terms of this being a sort of new communication vertical that is an evolution of social media. What is your objective? Are you trying to reach audiences that aren't spending time on Instagram anymore? They're in TikTok and Snapchat, but maybe Fortnite and Roblox as part of that conversation. What are the sort of things you can do inside these platforms that you can't do inside those old platforms? Can you express your brand values better? Are you looking to generate a new revenue stream through digital goods? I think all of these different objectives will lead you down a different route, both in terms of the platform, the virtual platform you go into, but then how you go into that platform as well.
So let's talk about some real examples. Mark, I want to kick us off with some of the communities and/or brands or IP that you've been working with, and how are they thinking about it? How are you thinking about it? What does success look like?
Definitely, and so much of this for us has been this idea that at these large organizations, maybe it's their children that are playing, maybe it's siblings or friends, but there's a Fortune 10 company that spent some time A/B testing their employee onboarding, and they hire over 10,000 people a year. And they said, hey, let's do half of this the traditional way, which is the WebEx Teams method, and then let's do half of this in the virtual world. And fortunately for them, everything was up and to the right. and they're rolling that out because it's creating that experience that people really, really want.
So talk us through a little bit more. Have people in the audience spent time on Virbela? Some, but certainly a lot have not yet. So talk us through, what does it look like? What does that onboarding look like? What would it mean to be onboarded at a company in Virbela?
Yeah, so much of what we've done is learn from people like Roblox and learn from the billions of gamers around the world. And when an organization comes in, we work with them very closely, or our partners like PwC work with them very closely to say, this is what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to say, how do we drive up employee retention? How do we drive up employee satisfaction? How do we make these experiences feel a lot more like an in-person engagement that we're having right now than a big webinar that everybody has their camera off and they're probably talking to their dog instead.
That's true.
Excellent, yeah. It's such a good point. What are some other examples that you all have created or worked with?
Yeah, I mean, so we have plans, they're not launched yet, but to engage on some of these platforms like Roblox, spoiler. But really to engage the users in these platforms and create a line of communication with them, create a relationship with them in the way that they're used to. So, we've looked at online digital communities on places like Roblox. We found that what really drives engagement, retention, monetization is not these one-time activations that are designed to, put butts in seats for a movie or to, celebrate the 40th anniversary of, XYZ. It's games. Well, and there's other experiences, obviously, that have succeeded on Roblox as well, but it's really, for a lot of these users that are on these platforms, it's games that drive the engagement, games that drive the retention. And so our goal is to actually create really kick-butt games with leading developers on the platform, because we believe that's what a lot of the users, in this case Roblox, they're used to and they want. Alongside the game, there will be benefits for the gamers if they go to a place that, a side kind of hub, as it were, where they can engage with our brands in a non-gamified way. There will be benefits to them to go there, but the hub itself is not a compelling experience. The game is designed to be that compelling experience that they come back to day after day.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, these platforms, a lot of things are happening. Communication. People are coming together and they're finding their friends and they're doing things together that's fun. And so on Roblox, last year there were over 1 billion friendships made. There's constant people socializing with one another. There's virtual shopping. People they have their online avatar, which is their digital representation of themselves. And for the past, I've been at Roblox for over a decade. It's just been a behavior that's organic to the platform. You go on, you search for what you want for your avatar, you find things, you purchase them or earn them, and you put it on your avatar. So shopping is also a behavior that's happening on the platform. And I'll just give an example of, we've had so many amazing partners come onto our platform, but one that, sticks out in this example is Alo Yoga, who built a sanctuary around mental health and well-being, because that is their mission, is to bring awareness to mental health and well-being globally. So the whole reason for this space is to allow people to come in and, even if it's for a few minutes, take a break and actually feel calm and drown out the noise of the physical world. And it's had over 95 million visits in over a year, which is absolutely amazing. And the constant feedback from the audience is, thank you for giving me something I needed, for giving me a space to go to when I'm struggling, in the physical world. And now I can go in, and even if it's for a few minutes or 10 minutes, I could really practice well-being. So it's just always having a purpose and building something that aligns with, your audience's values and their interests.
It's a really good example.
Yeah, I would just add that it's amazing how the brands themselves have started to evolve their thinking around these platforms since Geek first started in 2018. The first thing they were asking was, how does my experience look? There was a lot of aesthetics being the most important part of the strategy of going in. And as we've correctly heard, not just thinking about how it looks, but how it feels. And actually, what's the game mechanic? Yeah. What's the player loop? And I think that's the sort of meta we're in right now with regards to brands going in. However, that also has to evolve, because you can't end up with a bunch of brands doing the same mini games, which is the same mechanic and the same player loop, is what actual value are you adding to the platform? It's a way to pull people in and to get them to come back. But it's that second point that you raised, which is going to be really important going forward. This is how platforms like Roblox are pushing the way and evolving, is actually what's the connection? What's the communication layer here? And I think what we'll see is we'll see brands absolutely adopting the player mechanics game loop model, but that will evolve to how does my brand uniquely add value to this community? I can think of Walmart, one of our customers that recently just relaunched on Roblox. Actually, that's a utility tool. That's not a game. So it's really thinking about how these start to evolve in terms of strategies.
So building on what you're talking about, some of the lessons that have been learned over the years.
Many.
Yeah, many. So let's talk about you call out clients or not, but what are some that have realized along the way maybe they needed to take a turn, take a U-turn and shift, and how are they? What data are they looking at? What analytics are they looking at? What are the metrics that are driving the decision making?
God, this is an incredibly dangerous question.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
The Economist is here for dangerous questions.
Well, the objectives have changed over time as well. I think a lot of people were going in to kind of tick a metaverse box before they kind of understood the true value of what this space was. And as the learning has evolved and they've started to see, you were talking about persistent experiences. That's like creating an Instagram profile and then constantly servicing the Instagram community with content to increase your followers so that every picture you come out with, you get a like. The difference is when you were talking about...
Isn't that what most people on Instagram do?
Well, pretty much now. I mean, this is the difference. And the exciting thing is when Christina was talking about Alo Yoga and how it's 95 million visits total, that's not the most interesting number. The most interesting number is it's 500,000 visits, I believe it's a month. So if you think about that, and then even more interesting is it's roughly 5 to 7 minutes per visit. So how do we compare a visit to a like? Well, like is 5 seconds, a visit is 5 minutes. The learnings have been the changes of approach and understanding to the platforms of, hey, we're going in here to look innovative, to, oh, we're actually now going in here to engage with our community in a new way.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to the time spent. I mean, I think that more and more brands are starting to realize exactly what you just said. What does that mean to spend minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes with a brand and where you're fully focused? When people are on Roblox, they're having fun, they're with their friends, they're communicating, they are 100% there. If you've ever in this room experienced anybody who's on Roblox and you're talking to them, a lot of times they just don't hear you.
This is an incredible plug for Geek, by the way. We do this data, so there we go.
But this time spent, what this means is you're turning people and audiences into fans. And for a brand to actually have somebody engage with your brand and start to become an advocate and go and wear your digital fashion, they actually go and speak about your brand to others, that is a win, And so these things are happening on this platform. So it's not just getting in front of an audience, it's not just creating a game for a short period of time, but it's really connecting and communicating and building relationships with people over the world. And they end up being advocates for your brand.
I'll add to that really quick. There's been lots of discussion. NBC Universal is a large organization. We have lots of different teams, all with different objectives and KPIs, right? But kind of abstracting that away, when we think about Roblox, ultimately we are a company of storytellers, and we want to tell compelling stories. Connecting, potentially shopping, avatar expression. These are all great things. And monetizing, engaging, retention, that's great. But at the core of it, it is really going back to the basics and what makes a compelling experience? What makes a compelling story? That is the crux of what we try to think about when we, that's the starting point, it's the kernel of how we approach the platform. And in these cases, we'll be engaging in games, and so there's a compelling story that can be told through the game playing process. But as we do evolve our strategy, think about other ways to engage the community, provide better ways for fans of our IP to communicate with each other, we will start to think about, again, what is the compelling experience in the communication side, on the brand consumer products or apparel purchasing side. It's all about what is that story you're trying to tell, and who are the best partners to help you tell that story.
Well, one thing that you and I were talking about earlier, Sean, was the game that we used to play 25 years ago. And in this game, you wouldn't measure your time by hours. You would measure it by days, right?
Yeah, years.
And years. And what we've seen with clients too, like eXp Realty, they've gone from 5,000 real estate agents to over 90,000 real estate agents completely in the platform. So when people are making these friendships, these relationships, when they're getting better at their actual occupation, their vocation, their skill, they're able to learn that and have that experience inside one of these platforms that, again, in the consumer sense, you measure that time in years.
What game was that?
EverQuest.
Nice.
Great.
So, in the past, we all thought about impressions, and the larger audience, the better. Super Bowl, and, must see TV era.
League of Legends finals every year. Things like that.
And in some of the communities, it's a niche community. It's a fireside conversation, and so you have much more highly engaged audiences. But how do you think about balancing those two, and how do the brands, the groups, the IP owners that you work with think about that? Have they come to understand the sort of the relative benefits of one versus the other, and how is that journey going? And if there's people in the audience who are working with their teams back at home, how would you recommend that they think about that?
Oh man, I mean, I'll take a stab at this first. So before joining NBC Universal, I worked at blockchain gaming companies for about 6.5 years. And probably the first 5.5, 6 years, all the way until about Q1 2022, the discussion was around experimentation, right? These small communities of very highly engaged and often highly monetizing users, it was okay to only target them. And a lot of companies, lived and died by the ability for them to really attract these smaller niche audiences. Now, though, it's 2023, soon to be 2024, and I feel that a lot of companies, including NBC Universal, the time for experimentation, while there's still teams that do experimentation, we've kind of moved on. Now the question is, how do we scale? How do we bring these learnings to mass audiences? Because we do have mass audiences of fans. How do we make them sustainable by having monetization features that can both sustain the initial costs, but also give us enough capital to invest more and grow it larger? And so I think that the evolution really now with metaverses or Web3 elements, et cetera, not AI yet, it's still a little pretty new, but is how do we make these sustainable? How do we make them scale? How do we make them monetize and drive revenue for the team and for the company?
Oh, I just want to pick up on fandom, because we're talking about fans coming together and how fans, that experience of coming together with like-minded people and celebrating a common interest is absolutely amazing and a big opportunity. On Roblox, we actually have fan hubs around the K-pop artists, Twice, Blackpink, and what we're seeing is fans will come together. They just want to talk to each other. They're leaving fan notes for the band. There was over 30 million fan notes left for them. And you think about the sports partners on the platform like NFL and NHL, and they're really meeting fans where they are, and making sure that they're giving them content that's really interesting to them, so that it's a physical to digital offline interest. So I would just say fandom is a massive opportunity for brands to think about how do you get your fans together in spaces where they can connect with one another and give them amazing content that they're excited about.
And for brands, for IP like Blackpink and Fast and Furious and groups like that, fandom is built in. And what about for brands that don't have fans like that are different types of products?
Yeah.
I think
this is something that I worked on a lot when I was at Universal. And we're kind of bringing those brands together. How are you all thinking about it?
But I think those brands have the same challenges they did in print, TV, and radio advertising. They have the same challenges they did in traditional digital media and social media advertising. It's the same challenge here. There are many brands, fast-moving consumer goods brands, that can create fandom through amazing storytelling. the question is how creative are you and how well do you know your audience and can you provide something of value? No difference, same challenges that they had previously. And by the way, based on the last question, the sort of movement of attention from traditional television to social media wasn't the death of TV advertising. This is always going to be a mix in your marketing mix. The difference now is there's just another category, which is immersive. And what you get back from that is slightly different to what you'll get back from out of home and what you'll get back from digital.
And I think to that same point, it's great content is memorable. Great experiences are memorable. For brands, obviously they're communicating with people in platforms like Roblox, but they're also communicating on Reddit, and they're communicating on X, and Threads, and Facebook, and all of these different places that actually create that fandom. In the corporate sense, you're communicating over email, you're communicating over phone calls, you're communicating on Slack, on Teams. And this is a multimodal, omni-channel world. And as long as we're honest about those experiences and understanding that they can all really build a flywheel for amazing experiences, we're in a great spot.
Yeah, customer journey.
Just to think about Gen Z specifically, the majority of discovery happens on UGC platforms. So when you think about if you're a new brand or you're having a new product come out or a new show, it's like, how do you tap into these audiences of creators? Because even on Roblox, some of our top experiences are by developers who are Roblox famous, and they created experiences and shared them with the world, and people discovered them. So really, I would say collaborating with creators and communities and bringing amazing content that is going to be fun and interesting. But I would just think through of collaboration with creators.
How do you recommend that people find the right collaborators and partners?
Well, this is very biased. I'm going to say data. It's very important. You want to collaborate with someone who's popular in the community and has a voice in the community. If that's what your objective is to reach a lot of people, you do the same with influencer marketing. You're sort of looking at the demographics of the influencer that you're working with and seeing if it aligns with your brand. Maybe the storytelling piece is actually collaborating with someone that's undiscovered, and you're giving the brand value of empowering someone who has a great talent that you want to shine a light on. But for me, that answer is quite simple. It's look at the data and find out, well, actually, I'm a hat company. What's the UGC creator that sells the most hats? That's the way I would look at it.
And it's also acknowledging the sophistication of the audience. I think it's easy for people to forget that 10 years ago, a lot of these concepts were very new. But now, the average consumer that's hitting any of our websites is very, very sophisticated. Their antennas are high. And as long as we treat them with that type of respect, they'll give it back to us.
Yeah, I'll add too that I think the importance of data cannot be overstated, right? You should always be using data in your decision making. That should be part of your slides. It should be part of your justification. But I also feel that there's an important place for gut, right? Like data alone, you're gonna eventually, it's gonna create something that has no heart, no spirit, right? Your gut, which is accumulated through experience or hiring someone that has that experience, is important for you saying, hey, this is a slight extension. The data kind of gets us this far. Now we need to take a chance, right? We need to make a calculated chance, so that's where the data comes in. But the gut is kind of what the accumulated experience, the experts, people like Geek, I guess, that you need them to help you make smart decisions because data can't tell the entire story.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's the balance of both. What you don't want is just gut.
Yes, sure.
That's kind of dangerous.
You need both.
You need both,
Yeah.
for sure.
One for humans, right? And
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
something we're still useful for.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Okay. So let's talk about identity and representation and how this shows up on platforms and what you've seen and what are some best practices and what are audiences looking for?
Well, I mean, I would say that if we're talking about virtual environments, it's quite funny. Different virtual environments actually attract different demographics as well. If you think about Zepeto, or you think about Rec Room, or you think about Super QQ in China, or even Roblox. Roblox is so big now that the demographics are pretty huge and vast varying. But if you go into The Sims, for example, which is actually a user-generated content platform, not many people know that, it's hugely female audience. And much older audience as well. Whereas if you go into Call of Duty, it's going to be the polar opposite. So demographics and representation kind of depends on the platform that you would go into, or the platform that you're talking about. Same with social media. You know, the demographics for TikTok are slightly different to the demographics for Instagram.
So for us, we spent years redesigning our avatar engine, specifically because we got feedback from a number of different clients that they didn't feel that they were accurately represented. And if you go online and you see the comments around any video game or any platform, people will say consistently, hey, I didn't see something that I felt represented me. And to us, being able to represent you as a person is so incredibly important. I think one of the things that I was proudest about hearing from a board member at EXP actually, the HR team had done a DEI event around Black History Month. And the board member called us crying because she said, listening to Maya Angelou in the world actually let her know that she was working on a project that she really, really cared about.
Yeah, self-expression is so important, and people want to feel either it looks just like them, it feels just like them, or completely different, but they want that option. And so with technology, we're enabling so our community can actually create avatars on their own. And what I love about this platform is it's very much that if you don't see it, you can create it. And I think that enables people to create from all over the world with different backgrounds, different perspectives, and share that with others so that people do feel like when they come to the platform, it is for them. And we've done so much research around digital fashion as well. People want to express themselves with digital fashion and beauty. And 70% of people say that their avatar style influences their physical world style and vice versa. So the impact...
70%.
70%. The impact of...
Big responsibility, right?
Well, if you think about, especially digital natives who seamlessly move from physical to digital and back and forth, even though it's their avatar, it still feels like it's them. And so if they're finding something that they love to wear on their avatar, that might influence what they wear in the physical world and vice versa. So self-expression is extremely important, and I think that if you didn't grow up using an avatar, you may not know the behavior, but really I would recommend that get to know the people that did grow up online and watch how they behave, watch how they interact with one another and express themselves through their avatars.
And that's connected to commerce as well, right?
Yeah, right now it's virtual commerce. So on Roblox, everything is virtual. We have an economy. We have Robux. But
I know I bought my niece a lot.
My boys are also on the platform, and yes, they're asking for Robux.
I agree with everything the other panelists said. One other
We're trying to have controversy.
I know. Maybe we won't. But one additional item that we think about when we try to make experiences is there's a lot of different fans of our IP and franchises, and we want to let fans engage with the franchises and IPs in the ways that they want to. Mm-hmm. So when we create stories, obviously there's a certain kind of thing that the storyteller brings to the experience. But something that's important to us is allowing enough room in these experiences for players to engage with the experiences in the ways that they want to. And you can see this, I've watched a lot of Roblox videos. Different people create all these amazing videos about one experience. Even the core game loop might be this. Yeah. You have 10 to 20 different kinds of videos. And when we create our experiences, we want to give users the space to play around and have fun in the way that they want to.
Mm-hmm. Just one thing I love that you have been talking about is storytelling, because I think that's such an opportunity as well, is to really storytell and inspire. And whether you're a marketer or you're a creator, it does give you a platform for you to bring out your vision and your storytelling in ways you can't do anywhere else.
I think Stranger Things was an interesting example of that.
This was amazing.
Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, so on Roblox, Netflix created a Stranger Things experience where you could actually watch the first episode of Stranger Things in an immersive environment, because we know that people are watching content on 2D, they're also on different other screens, and they're multitasking. So this experience actually brought together fans, but also people that were new to Stranger Things, where they can watch it in 2D, and then that what was on screen would actually influence the environment. So if there were demogorgons on the screen, there were demogorgons in the environment, and it caused people just to really be excited about what's coming up next. They could talk about it with others in the world. They could actually dress up like in Stranger Things merchandise. So
you had scavenger hunts. You had like rain when it was raining on screen.
I mean, and I think what this is really just watching. I mean, behaviors are changing, and how people are consuming or experiencing entertainment is changing. And so if you don't innovate, you're going to be losing out. And so really watching how are people Gen Z, interacting, how are they advocating for brands, and what's the behavior there, and make sure that you're innovating along with them. So I think this was a great example of that.
And I guarantee that in those spaces, people were having theories about what the rest of the season would look like.
Yeah.
Because again, with that multi-channel attitude, it's that fan fiction, but also just the theories, the blog posts, the comments. I don't know what happened, but somewhere YouTube comments turned like not toxic in the last few years. There are actually like some interesting conversations there. So it's, again, we're evolving.
And so how do you think about this on a global level, right? How do you, there's such an opportunity here, whereas in the past, you would have events in a specific, physical events in a specific place to bring together. I did plenty of watch parties back in the day, but we would go to a city and bring people together. The opportunity now is bringing people from so many different parts of the world together in a synchronous fashion. How do you think about that, and what does that bring? What does that offer? What are the opportunities afforded there?
Well, obviously physical events have physical limitations. And I'm just looking at Christina because Gucci Garden is, totally.
Yeah.
Tell
us.
Yeah, so,
Yes,
let me
totally
share.
understand what you're talking about.
We'll just have a private. I think, they were one of the very, very early brands that embraced the platform in the right way, I think. And Roblox was a sort of necessity because of lockdown, because they had an experience that was only available in, I believe it was Milan or Florence, I think it was Florence, only available in Florence to a certain amount of people. And it's how do we make this experience available to multiple people at scale very quickly? Well, you end up with Gucci Garden and Roblox, which I think was a sort of watershed moment for how a brand can interact with these spaces and use these spaces to enhance a physical experience. And obviously, 20 million visits later in 2 weeks, there were more people that attended the Roblox experience than the physical experience could ever physically take. I don't know if you want to say more on that.
I agree. I mean, Gucci is so innovative and really forward-thinking. And if you think about, people all over the world, we hear numbers, right? Like 66 million people on Roblox every day. You just think about the number, but if you actually think about individuals around the world who cannot physically go to things like Gucci Garden, but they want to.
Or Tommy Hilfiger's fashion show, or at the Elton John last concert.
Yeah, it's like they really want to, and then on these platforms, they feel like they actually went. And I think that's what's so important. You talked about memories. It's so funny when you think about, we even say that. So when I went to Gucci Garden, and it's like, you don't really say on Roblox, and then people are like, did you physically go, or was that digitally? And I think that's what's so important, is to actually create these memories and feelings that you were there. And that's such a big opportunity for people all over the world who financially or physically, or there's a reason they can't be there. And how do you create that experience for them in a way that's memorable?
Creates inclusion, yeah.
And to that exact point, some of us were out at Cannes Lions this year. And we worked with PwC to actually bring that experience into the metaverse. And the feedback that we got from our partners at PwC was that, hey, this is something that allowed us to touch materially more people. And it's getting that accessibility, getting that larger connection that's so helpful.
So true. I attended Laval Virtual in Verbella in France. During lockdown. I did a lot of stuff with HP. At the end of every event we had fireworks, which was like it lives in my memory as a really beautiful work event that I was probably in my pajamas for. But I looked great with my avatar.
Yeah. One thing, and yes, I think online ecosystems allow brands and creators to reach more users worldwide than they ever were before. One lesson I learned through games, though, is that with games, it's about understanding your users, right? Understanding your target users. If you're going to make a certain kind of game, chances are that game is going to appeal to, if it's a Call of Duty, like maybe a more mature male, right? Or if it's something else, it could appeal to a completely different user. Same thing can be said with geographies, right? The gamers in Asia, gamers in the United States, gamers in Latin America and South America, Europe. There's very different preferences, like on a high level. And so while your games can appeal to the international stage, to users all over the world, when we talk to developers and creators, we want them to be very confident that they'll at least get one subset of users right. Right? If you don't have that one core subset of users, then it's going to be hard. Like that's going to be where you start, and if it goes well with them, then hopefully you can open it up. So yes, global reach is great, but definitely know the core user that you're going to be focusing on.
I think that's such an important
Deep
point.
but broad at the same.
Yeah. And I mean, further to that, yes, the users are different and the way different geographies play are different, but ages are different too. Yeah. If you think about an older user and the way an older user goes into a virtual environment and goes into a game almost, they're growing up having played games solitary, Mario Kart on your own, or just when a friend comes around, that's the only social experience. So they were going into games to play. That's kind of trained into their mindset. The fundamental difference that happened in roughly when the rise of the UGC games was actually, if you ask someone of a younger generation, you go, why are you going to this game? And yes, they're saying they're going to play, but actually they're going to hang out with their friends.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
Social experience.
Just one more thing on the global. It doesn't have to be also an event or a limited time experience that you're going to visit. It could be really around going to the Met with a friend. Now we enabled voice chat. You can actually go in and experience things together. If it's around education, it's about learning about ancient Rome, or it's going to virtual universities and learning about the university before you can ever physically go there. So I think it's also about not just limited time events, but also things that you just can go visit. And then you're learning from different cultures too. If it's global, you're visiting places globally, then you're learning from one another. You might be learning the language or the culture, and so I think that's a huge opportunity.
It is.
Yeah.
All right, we have a question. Mark, from Michelle Attar. Thank you, Michelle. What were the key benefits of onboarding via metaverse versus traditional methods? Engagement, longer-term retention.
So we've got a Fortune 500 call center firm. They've got over 300,000 employees. They were also doing one of these A/B tests and saying, hey, we've got 2 cohorts. What's our employee retention throughout the training program? The employee retention in the virtual world was 268% higher. And the way that we think of that is a lot of employees, particularly if they're remote, they leave one job, they close their laptop, they get their new laptop, they open up Teams. In this case, they were opening up their laptop and they were going into a virtual world that was custom built for their firm. So, doesn't sound that wild to me.
All right, so we're going to wrap soon. So two more questions. Okay. What piece of advice would you give somebody in the audience who either hasn't started working in these platforms yet for their company or has and wants to accelerate?
All right, I'll try to be relatively quick because we're wrapping up. One is to clearly define your goals. Kind of we touched on that before. Metaverse isn't for everyone. There's lots of companies that have tried and didn't necessarily do well. So understand your goals, and to help you understand what your goals are and what realistic expectations are, to work with an expert, preferably on your own team, but if not, like a strong agency or someone like Geek, I guess. I'm not trying to plug you, but yeah. Just have
Ariel.
Charles, how much did you pay him?
What's that?
How much did you pay him?
We'll talk about
In
it another time.
Robux.
Yeah, Robux.
He paid him in Robux.
A lot of
Oh my
Robux.
God.
Lots of Robux. V-Bucks as well, the whole thing, everything.
All right.
Yeah, I would just say, really speak to people who are on these platforms and watch how they're behaving on them. If you are planning your next marketing campaign, you're talking about innovation for your company, and you look around the room and no one has actually been on these platforms, really get outside of that room and go speak to people who are on them and understand what's happening, what is the impact, hear from them, because they will give you so many great tips. And then I would say also, once you decide to get into this space, really collaborate with those who are using the platform and creating on the platform, because they will use provide knowledge to you, and then share vision, and that's really when we see the most success.
Quickly add, or watch YouTube videos. If it's hard for you to play the game, watch YouTube videos. That's
Obviously, I'm going to say take a data-led approach and know about your objectives and all of that stuff. But there's one thing that I sort of recently understood, which preconceptions are quite dangerous. So you can go in, and I think it's good to try all the platforms and give it a go, but when you're trying them, just remember your experience is going to be what they would call a sort of noob. So you're going in there, you don't have any friends in there, and actually just be careful about your preconceptions, because the way you go in to play a game isn't necessarily the way a user is going to go in there. Because a user's got hundreds of friends, and they're actually meeting up with their friends. It's difficult to replicate that if you don't have...
Yes, I would agree. And also iterate. You don't have to just launch and be like, oh, that didn't work. It's like, listen to your audiences. They will give you so much feedback, and then you can iterate, and you can make it more successful and more fun from there. So. That's also what I would add to that.
On top of that, I'd encourage anybody that's looking at this, ask your team who's excited. Because that person on your team that's excited, I guarantee they spend more time than they'd like to admit to you in these platforms. And they will sit down with you or jump on a screen share with you and walk you around the platform and be so engaged and so excited.
I love it. So be excited, get a lot of friends.
Get friends. That was my advice, is get friends.
Get friends. Okay, last question. How do people get in touch with you after this, and what would you like people to get in touch with you for? Are you hiring? Are you looking for partners? What are the things that you'd like people to come and talk to you about?
You can add me on LinkedIn, Sean Keith, S-E-A-N, or you can find me here on the side after the panel.
Sean's looking for friends.
And then, thanks. And then, no, actually, I'm not looking for friends. But if you want to do business,
that's rule number one.
If you want to do business,
you're listening to the advice already. Data-led.
If you want to do business, I'm looking for great creators, great game makers, and great people that just make creative and cool stuff in the digital space that will get eyeballs and hopefully monetize.
Great creators.
Yeah.
Same, LinkedIn, or find me on the side. But I would say we're always looking for just to talk to great people who have innovation, and vision, but with a purpose. So if you're looking to create something on Roblox, let us know.
LinkedIn, of course. We are outside. We've got a stand out there. But I would encourage everyone to sort of download our latest report, which shows the number of brands that have gone into all of the different platforms. Christina will be very pleased to hear that Roblox is the number one at the moment. So do have a look at the report.
Yeah, you can definitely stop by the booth or jump into the world. And I can't encourage it enough. Any of these platforms, just get in there, check it out. Obviously happy to chat.
Excellent. I'm Joanna Popper. You can find me on all the platforms at Joanna Popper. I have a lot of friends, but I'll always take more. So thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you.
Christina.